It's the end of the day. And man, I'm coming at this right now with a sense of gratitude. I'm grateful for where I am. I'm grateful for who I'm with. I'm grateful that I've somehow survived 40 years in the music business, 40 years trying to make it in music. Not even sure what that even meant. Man, I guess to some people, it might seem like, I had some success or whatever, but man, it never felt like, it never quite reached Robin Leach levels. Let's just put it that way. It's a struggle, just like it's a struggle now. It's a struggle, doing this channel and stuff like that. But man, I am extremely thankful for everybody that tunes in and listens to my message because, man, it's dawned on me today, and I still have a lot of friends that are in the industry. Some of them call and tell me things and tell me, what's going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. And man, I just have to shake my head. I mean, there are people that have no place going back out on the road, and they're somehow addicted to it. And they go out. They're going to continue doing things. And man, my whole time being out on the road, I used to, and I've talked about this before, I just did not want to die in a tour bus. And I had heard, man, there's a famous drummer slash percussionist that had a long career and did a lot of stuff, played with a lot of big name artists. I can remember hearing the story of his passing on a tour bus. Now, he had been diagnosed with cancer about a month before this, but he got in his tour bus bunk and had, a heart attack or a heart issue, and boom, gone just like that, man. Gone just like that. Probably had no idea. Yeah, he was sick, and yeah, it looked like he was facing some health issues, but probably needed to get back on that bus to keep the money coming in. I mean, like I've said before, there is no retirement in the music business. And, if you're a road dog, you're a road dog. And here's the thing, man. Here's the other thing. You could start off your career playing with top tier artists, headlining and doing all that stuff. And then maybe you go through a period where you're a studio player and you might play on, tons of albums and all this stuff. And as you get older in your career, you're considered, not hip anymore. New people come in, new producers come in. And that's probably the start of it. That's probably, I had heard, man, this is probably like 15 years ago or maybe even 20 years ago in Nashville, that country music had gone through a slump and that the labels wanted to shake things up and they wanted new producers, they wanted new players. You had the 90s country where it was the same 5 to 10 people playing on every album. And so what ends up happening is, man, if things are selling a lot, and this is back when they were selling CDs, they were selling cassettes. I think country music was the last bastion of physical sales because, man, and I'm from the South, but I think, man, they were still selling CDs when I was out on the road, 10, 11 years ago, still selling physical CDs because maybe the people that listened to that music weren't as internet savvy, and and maybe they were an older audience. And so physical copies. Now look, the other thing about selling a physical copy of a CD, at the merch table. It's easier to get the artist to sign it. Obviously, you can't sign a download. But man, country music is its own unique thing, but it goes through phases. There's a lot of the old school cats who say, Nashville. I did the interview with my buddy Michael Fair, who is a smooth jazz artist out of Nashville. And somebody just called, well, it ain't been country for, I was like, the interview's not even about country music. It's just to show that country was just one flavor of music that the town had in it, just like every town, man. Any decent sized city is going to have, a jazz club and a rock club and a country place and a honky tonk and different things, man. A decent large city, and Nashville has become a large city. It seemingly felt like a small city when I moved there, but it changed a lot. And these studio players that were hot for a while, once the charts cool off and the record labels maybe bring in new people. Record labels fire CEOs just like any other business, and that CEO gets removed and a new guy comes in, and it's the same thing with grunge coming in and taking over glam metal. Look, if the labels had stayed behind glam metal and that was what they wanted to push, grunge would have never had a chance. But because somebody in power got behind grunge music and decided this was the new thing, and we're going to start signing all these grunge bands, and the hair bands are done. It's the same thing that happened in Nashville. You could be hot one minute, you could be the hot, fiddle player or steel player or whatever, and then the music changes. New CEO comes in, new people come in, new producers come in, and they start shuffling the deck and they start trying new things. So if you're one of those older players and you had your period where, man, maybe you were first call session player because you worked with a certain producer that used to get a lot of calls. But as time goes, those producers get older, maybe their influence, maybe a CEO change, any number of things that are out of your control. And all of a sudden, you went from being able to stay home, raise your family, go, play in the studios. All of a sudden, maybe you're pushing 60 years old and you've got to go back out on the road. And that's how you become a sideman in your 60s. Now, look, the type of calls that you get when you're 60 years old or 58 years old or something like that, you're not going to get the calls to play with the top, most popular youth-oriented artists. Nashville, you can have a long career and you don't have to be a kid necessarily, but there is a cutoff at some point. What ends up happening when you are older and you have to go back out on the road? Well, then you go out with a legacy act, an older act, an act with an older bus, a bunch of veterans. Now, look, that has its positives as well. Aging in the industry. Perhaps this video is about aging in the music business. But man, here's the thing. The downside of these aging artists is it's unlikely that they're going to have like a Johnny Cash resurgence. And what do I mean by that? Johnny Cash hooked up with Rick Rubin, and all of a sudden he was back on the charts and they're getting booked all the time and all this very late in his career. But Johnny Cash was like an Elvis style figure, and he deserved to get that blast, to get that final career blast, because he was the icon, right? He was probably the last iconic music star. I mean, almost a direct correlation to Elvis Presley, Memphis, Sun Records, that whole thing, man. And so here's the thing. If you're an older musician and you get with one of these legacy acts, and I got a call to to go on out with a legacy act. And, I already knew, man, because I had been with an act that, had been on the way up. I've been with some acts that were on their way down. And what that entails is not as much comfort, the potential for big paydays probably don't happen. The artist isn't actively trying to record new material because people just want to hear the old hits. And you could end up playing the same set night after night with very little variation. You could get burnt out. Here, the good thing about it is it's generally probably weekend warrior work. You probably are only going to do 3 at the most, maybe 4 shows, on a run. And then you're going to come home and you're going to be home for a few days and you go back out the next weekend. Going on these 3-week long runs, that's for the young artists. That's for the people on the climb up. And man, those 3-week long runs. I mean, look, here's the reality. You can't possibly pack for 3 weeks because everybody knows, especially if you're a performer and you got to get on stage, you've got your favorite pair of jeans, you got your couple favorite shirts, the stuff that you look good in. And as you get further in the week, and it's like, I could tell by old pictures from road gigs how deep I was into a tour or a run because, oh man, I would never normally wear those pants. Those pants wouldn't even make it out of the suitcase. But obviously, we've been out for a while, and trying to do your laundry when you're on the road and all that, man, that can be as difficult as finding porcelain or finding a decent meal or any of the other creature comforts, or a shower, or any other creature comforts. That's the other thing. If you're out with a legacy act, man, you're not getting your own hotel room. That's very rare. That's very rare. Now, I did, when I was out with my oldies act, doing fly dates, one of his stipulations was everybody gets their own room. You guys are all grown men. You don't need to be sharing rooms. So that was like awesome. But man, most acts double up, man. Everybody, 2 guys in a room, and hopefully you're with somebody you like and can tolerate, and your sleeping habits and all of these things. But man, to be one of those guys who, toured with a huge name act and then worked their way into the studio system and played on maybe 100 records. And, time goes by and your family grows up and your kids grow up. And then, maybe you get that diagnosis that you're very ill, but man, there's no retirement, so you've got to go back out on the road. You get in that bunk for the night. The bus takes off and you're gone. You're gone. They try to wake you maybe the next day, or maybe it's later that evening. They sense something is up and you're gone, man. And so this is that gratitude because, man, I've seen people come back from the road just like PTSD of any job, any high stressful job, whether you're a cop or a fireman or you're going to battle for a few years or whatever. I've seen the faces of broken men. I've heard the stories of people and the tragic things. I've seen people fall from the lighting rig and hit their head, straight onto a stage floor and be on the ground and just like, did I just see somebody die? I've been in the altercations where somebody tries to get on your bus, or maybe somebody in another camp gets into an altercation with your camp, and then everybody's running off the bus and everybody's squared up, and there's a lot of madness. People can get the life nearly beaten out of them if they don't if they don't act right and they mouth off to the wrong person. I mean, I can imagine the same thing happens in the carny circuit or in the circus. There's a few rules out there, But man, it's not the same as just being a regular Joe out on the street. There's no guarantee of safety. Things can pop off at any time. And man, including there could be times where weapons are drawn and things are going on that, man, can be very volatile. So I'm just, without getting into any specifics, let me tell you something, man. There are people that have been broken by this system. And I feel great that I am here, that I'm able to tell the tale, that I lived to tell these stories. I survived, and I'm not having to get on that bus and go play that legacy gig. You know, I started feeling later in my time in Nashville, showing up on gigs and realizing I'm the old guy on the gig. You know, my hairstyle's out of date, my shoes are out of date. I'm from a different time. I am from a different world than everybody else on the gig. Now, man, most people were totally cool and appreciated that I showed up and I learned the material and I did a good job and all that. But man, you start realizing, man, when all your peers are 20 something years old and you're pushing 60 and you're still out there doing it, man, you start wondering, man, how long do I want to keep doing this? How long do I want to be out here dependent on this? So, man, that's not to say that you know, I might start playing again if the right situation occurs. But for now, I am very thankful that I didn't have to get on some legacy bus. I don't have to go back out on tour. I'm able to live, you know, to see another day. And man, I'm extremely thankful for that, because there are many that ended up in a very different place, either completely broken or 6 feet underground.